First off, hacktivists, and this time not related to the war, but a religious motivation. So this weekend we saw a good number of denial of service attacks targeting Australia, and the operation that we discovered was called Op Australia. And there was also a mention of Opsientic. Don't know where the Yentic comes from.
Obsgentic.
Yeah. So I have no idea where the Opsientic comes from, but most of the threat actors agreed on calling it Op Australia, and that's pretty much what happened. Is that the week before, so on March 11th, during the final show of the Melbourne Fashion Festival, a fashion label with the name Not a Man's Dream caused a big shockwave across the Muslim community by featuring a model that was wrapped in transparent material with the word Allah written in Arabic on it. Actually, it said Allah walks with me across the whole body of the model. So, and somebody, a Muslim that was in the audience, was actually shocked by this and made a video, posted it on TikTok, and that TikTok video went viral. So the whole Muslim community was not happy about that display of Not a Man's Dream. It's kind of a strange name to have Not a Man's Dream and then have women's clothing, because I
and
don't know.
also just to jump in there, this wasn't like really the first operation that we've seen the last few months around an insult towards Allah and a specific religion.
No.
There was in January we covered the event of, I forget the guy's name, but he was burning Qurans across I think it was like Sweden, was it?
It will come back with Anonymous Sudan.
Yeah.
And then before that, we had the incident where in India, where the Prophet Muhammad was used in a campaign. And then before that, you had Charlie Hebdo, who had cartoons with the Prophet Muhammad. So yeah, there has been a couple of recurring themes on Muslim, bad Muslim propaganda, I would say, or images against Muslim. So not surprised to see that they came out and started attacking. So there were a couple of groups involved. The major ones, the first ones that triggered it was Team Insane from Pakistan, and then Eagle Cyber was also there. Those are the ones who refer to it as Op Yentic. And Mysterious Team, who is referring to it as Op Australia. So Mysterious Team is from Bangladesh. So those are three groups of Muslims who were pulling together with a whole other number of smaller groups that were on Telegram, and they were communicating on Telegram. So we saw how fast they were able to spread that message and get it going. As of Friday, March 17th, so a couple of days after the incident, Not a Man's Dream got attacked. So they became a target for all those Muslim activists, and the attack started on Not a Man's Dream and continued until after the weekend. Now, in the weekend itself, a whole lot of denial of service and website defacement started happening in Australia on Saturday. And by Monday, we saw that more than 70 different Australian websites, including public websites of government, sports, banks, education, and also private businesses, have all been the target of denial of service attacks and also about alleged breaches. Giving some advice to be prepared. Now, we don't want to there's no reason to have any panic going around, but you can see how fast these people are coming together now, especially with their Telegram groups now. Before they had those private forums, and they had a lot of communication with their own members, but there wasn't a lot of communication between the different members that were not on the same private forums. Now you see that through Telegram, they easily can forward a message to a like-minded group and get them onto the same case and get them participating in those different attacks. So Telegram actually made them move much faster and made them much more connected compared to the way they were working before. Now, these attacks were clearly motivated by religion, which is different from the pro-Russian hacktivists, which are attacks that are motivated by politics. These were motivated by religion. So, and the objective is still the same, pretty much as with the pro-Russian hacktivist. It's about defacing public websites and making websites unavailable. So actually bringing the attention to their message and showing their message to the world. We all know that DDoS attacks are not the hardest to pull off. If there's one attack that you can do in a hit and run, it's a DDoS attack. There's no need to breach a website. There's no need to leave an IP address. You can do everything remotely. And since the start of the invasion of Russia in Ukraine, we have seen IT Army publish a lot of tutorials and polishing a lot of older tools and updating and improving tools and making DDoS much more accessible to anyone. Because they were asking a volunteer army across the West to help Ukraine to attack Russian targets, to stop the propaganda in Russia. And for this, they created tools and they provided people with tutorials on how to set up those tools, how to use those tools. So that actually democratized DDoS and make it much more accessible to anyone as it was before the invasion. So, and the fallout that we see here in Australia also demonstrates again how any organization can become a target of hacktivists. Most of the organization and education and government that were in the parts of Australia, they have nothing to do with Not a Man's Dream. They have nothing to do with that fashion. They never said anything wrong about Allah or anything wrong against Muslim, but they became a target. So that fashion.
Just to jump in there, that's something that we saw a lot with the Op SeaWorld, Op Killing Bay, a lot of the old anonymous operations where they didn't target people directly; they target indirect people that deal with shipping, logistics, tourism. They hit anybody and anything to get attention, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, but with that, we want to make sure that people understand there's no reason to panic, but organizations need to be prepared, because even if it's not that impacting for your website, it still gets the attention. Like the attacks in France now, there's a prosecution going on, so there's investigations going on, even though that the airports that were attacked in France recently, their operations were not impacted. It was only the public website. But at the same time, it can cause chaos from the people. People want to see information about the airport and cannot access the website. Media are publishing, all those websites went down. We were under attack. Luckily, we know most of the time by who, because hacktivists are claiming the attacks. So as long as they are claimed, at least we know from which angle they come, and there's no reason to panic. If a big attack would happen, nobody claims it, then we have a big question. Is it a nation state that's starting to attack that country? Will there be a much bigger fallout? Do we have to be scared about other kinds of attacks on critical infrastructure or more impacting attacks? In terms of a hacktivist, we know that they are there to cause chaos and to make themselves heard. They want to make sure that their message is heard, and they don't want anyone to abuse the name Allah, especially not in scarcely clothed models.
Yeah.
So and that also ties into my message about hacktivist DDoS are only a nuisance, which is true. When you're a target, okay, it comes around your website, and in some cases the attacks were only 5 minutes. Now in other cases, attacks can last a whole day. But I still have to come across an attack that was not able to be blocked by using adequate DDoS protection. So if you have DDoS protection, it will be stopped. However, I can understand that organizations say for certain of our websites, those are not critical parts of our business, we will not protect them. Now, by not protecting them, you are actually helping those hacktivists make their objectives. Hacktivists are looking for targets that are unprotected. So what we saw is we had several targets that were customers, and we see the attacks coming in. They're testing for 3 minutes, and then they go away. They come back with another attack vector, and they're like trying to poke around and see if something sticks. If they see that the website is not able to bring the website down, they just go away. They move on and they try to find another target. Now, if they cannot bring a website down, they can also not cause chaos, and they cannot spread their message. So automatically the problem will disappear if everyone will be protected. However, if you're not protected, well, then, especially when the media also talks about it, that's exactly what they want. They want the media attention. You see them bragging on their forums, on their Telegram forums. After a successful attack, first of all, they post a link to demonstrate the attack. So they actually inform us, we have done that attack. We have attacked that organization or that government. And then when it comes in the press, you see that immediately they take screenshots of the press and put it on their forum, show it to their members and boast about it. And that also increases their membership, increases their influence. That's what we see with Killnet. Killnet is very media savvy. So he built a reputation in Russia, was on different interviews. He's the glue now between all the different pro-Russian hacktivists that are in the same Killnet cluster. And that's growing. Their participation is growing, and also their impact will be growing. And if it continues to grow, at some point it might get worse. Especially now Killnet is starting to pivot and wants to move away from DDoS and wants to make a cyber Wagner army.
Yeah, and back to what you said as far as like Killnet, Killmilk looking to make their own private military contracting unit, even if they fail, this could just be such an idea where the Russian government steps in and starts sending them Wagner PMC members to do hacking for them. So, looking forward, it's DDoS is a nuisance, but it's a nuisance that we all have to deal with. Even if it's a successfully mitigated attack, someone's got to look into it, write a report, look into it after action.
Yeah. Now, moving to another part of the world, but still a hacktivist and still a motivation in the religion space, and also Muslim. So Anonymous Sudan has been attacking Sweden somewhere beginning of February and mid-February. So Swedish government, hospitals, transport, postal service, finance, education, a lot of different verticals were attacked by and targeted by Anonymous Sudan. And they claimed responsibility for more serious attacks on Scandinavian airlines. They said that they found access to customer data and that they would expose that data, but they even put it up for sale on their website. We cannot verify that information, but I would be very surprised if that was an actual breach. That's a typical tactic that we've also seen from Killnet in the past. First, they will do some DDoS attacks. They get media attention. Once they get that media attention, then they will say that they did a more serious attack and have access to sensitive data, and they're going to leak that data and hurt a specific company that is typically too big for them to attack. So that's psychological warfare that they're doing. They know that this target, they cannot attack that target under normal conditions, but after having the media attention and all the chaos caused the day before, they will leverage that momentum, and then they will post a message, and then people don't know what's going on. So there's a lot of doubt. Is it true? Is it not true? It's always harder to prove that something is not true than to find out that something was true. So how do you prove it? There's always a possibility that it had happened. So for those companies that get that kind of information out there, they have to go on the back feed and they have to go say that, no, we are sure that there was no intrusion. But how can you be sure? As we already know, there can be a backdoor that was sitting in the company for a long time. We have seen so many breaches and leaked credentials through ransomware attacks. How can you be 100% sure that you were not breached? It's nearly impossible. So that puts companies in a very difficult situation when hacktivists do that.
A lot of verification that has to go on there.
Yeah, and he also claimed the Swedish central bank that he attacked them. Now the Register took this up with the Russian, the Register as usual. They have always the greatest and the most.
They have the best headlines. They really do.
Yeah, the best headlines ever.
So they say what you can't say, type of thing.
Yeah. Russian hacktivists DDoS hospitals with pathetic results. And with pathetic results, what they mean is that, yeah, the websites were impacted and the websites were down, but the operations of the hospital were not impacted. So medical care was still ongoing. All the systems were working in the hospital. There was no disruption at all. in the hospital itself. It was only the public website. However, it was enough for for some central instances to come together. And like in Denmark, the Copenhagen Health Authority, so while Anonymous Sudan in the second half of February and early March was attacking hospitals in Denmark, they created a separate website where they consolidated all the contact information and all the doctor information for all the different websites for the 9 different Danish hospitals that were under attack, just to make sure that that information stayed available to people. Because as you know, we don't have phone books anymore. Now, these attacks from Anonymous Sudan were due to Quran burning. So that was an incident that happened earlier in Stockholm, where the Quran was burned by Rasmus Paludan, which is apparently a far-right politician with a dual...
He is very far-right politician. There's no apparently about that one. In fact, I think he actually just like a few days ago, he was banned from ever entering the United Kingdom going forward because he's so
he was going to do
confrontational.
something over there, right? He was going to burn the Quran in the UK, right? Yeah, that's what he announced.
At least some companies are smarting up. They know if he comes in there and he burns the Quran, they're going to be DDoS, so just keep him out of the country.
Well, yeah, he has dual nationality, so he can go in Denmark and Sweden without that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it was a Turk hacking team was the last wave of hackers that were targeting this guy because he was burning Qurans. Now Anonymous Sudan has picked up the lightning rod and ran with it.
Yeah, but it's again, they're attacking the country. They're attacking the hospitals, medical care. They're attacking governments. They're attacking transportation. They're attacking all kinds of different services of the country. Because this one guy that burned the book, it's not about the country. The country was as shocked as the Muslims, I would almost say. But if you look at Denmark, first it was the Danish education sector that was under attack. Then they went after the airports in Denmark. Then they went after the railway system. Then they went after the hospitals. And every day there was a new attack going on, and new DDoS attacks. But again, never was any of the operations were impacted of those organizations. It was always the public websites. As we said, the objectives of those activists is to be heard. So they're not gonna go penetrate silently into a company and sit there or encrypt the data and try to get money out. No, that's not their objective. Their objective is to get their message out. So they're gonna go after the most public assets that you have, which is your public website, which can impact your reputation. During the attacks on Denmark and Sweden, the objective, or better, the targets, not the motivation, but the objective of Anonymous Sudan was aligning well with the pro-Russian activists like Killnet, because Killnet wants to attack Sweden and Denmark, and did attack Sweden. Killnet, not only also No Name and other pro-Russian activists, have attacked Sweden and Denmark in the past because they want to join NATO. So if you look at the objectives, both of them are aligned. So Anonymous Sudan, Killnet, they both attack the same countries, and they're happy to jump on board and help each other to perform those attacks. However, the motivations are different. Anonymous Sudan is religion. It's about burning the Quran. Killnet, it's politics. It's about Sweden joining NATO and typically other countries providing support for Ukraine. But at the same time, Killnet did announce, and that's also to stir up the community and to build a bigger circle of influence again. But he announced at some point that Anonymous Sudan was considered an official member of Killnet, which also angered the Western factions of Anonymous. So the mainstream and Western Anonymous group denied that Anonymous Sudan was part of Anonymous. They don't want to have anything to do with Anonymous Sudan. And actually the same with Anonymous Russia. They also deny Anonymous Russia for good reason. And even there was a war, we talked about this, Anonymous Italy declaring the war against Anonymous Russia at some point. So Anonymous is one of those monikers that's being used by lone wolves and different hacker groups that want to get some attention. Now there's
this is also
Yeah, go
I was gonna
ahead.
say this is also the issue inside of Anonymous is that it's our way or no way, and then
Yeah,
you look at them and you're supposed to be an anti-statist group, but then all of a sudden they have political affiliation. We don't like you because you support this government. Well, what government do you support, Mr. Anonymous? It
yeah,
becomes very strange, right? Like this is
yeah,
kind of like what
exactly.
led to their downfall in 2016 is when half the group was supporting Hillary Clinton, the other half was supporting Donald Trump, and
Yeah,
completely downfall from the group because they chose to support politicians, right? They're supposed to be the
yeah.
anti-politician, but
Now, recently, so this weekend, Anonymous Sudan, this weekend, and also yesterday and day before, Anonymous Sudan was targeting France. And again, this time, and even during an interview with the French reporter, Anonymous Sudan, why are you doing this? He said, yeah, because of caricatures that Charlie Hebdo did in 2015, which is rather old, but yeah, still ties into the same religion motive that he used when he was attacking Sweden and Denmark. And the reporter also asks, what do you think about France helping Ukraine and giving support to Ukraine? And he said, yeah, I don't give a shit about all that. Um, Now, that said, if Russian hacktivists are attacking the same targets, or Russian attackers ask my help, I will always be ready to jump in because they helped me in the past with other targets. So because of their aligned objectives, they found each other, they helped each other, and now they're buddies.
BFF forever.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm not so sure about the forever because things can escalate quite quickly. But
Yeah, true, true.
so talking about their DDoS techniques, because there was some information that was put out there by a Swedish company Trusec, who worked together with different instances in Sweden and was able to march back up the DDoS traffic streams and find out that actually Anonymous Sudan was using a cluster of 61 paid servers that was hosted in IBM Cloud in Germany. So the person just paid for 61 servers, and then that traffic that he sent to disguise the origin of the attacks was routed through open proxies, which is not untypical. There's two ways to going about it. Either you build a botnet by infecting devices that are not yours, so basically taking over devices from other people, or you rent different hosts in different clouds and you use that as a botnet. Both ways, it's a botnet, and yeah, the ones in the cloud, of course, have much bigger capacity. If you're hacking a modem of somebody at home, you might have limited internet capacity, limited CPU resources, and memory resources. Of course, when you rent a server, sky is the limit, depending on your budget. I'm not sure where he gets the budget from. That's not clear yet. But, clearly, there must have been a good budget involved if he can rent an IBM cloud, because even I don't rent an IBM for that
61 of them too.
reason. Yeah, 61 servers. Now, Trusek also thought that the hacktivists are likely Russian or located in former Soviet Union countries with ties to Killnet. The ties to Killnet is clear. Killnet declared, because of common objective, Killnet declared that Anonymous Sudan was part of that cluster. However, the journalists who interviewed Anonymous Sudan through the phone said that he was fluent in Arabic and must have been Muslim. His standards were Muslim, so I don't think there's a lot of Arabic speaking Muslims in Russia at this moment. Um, Now they can be former Soviet Union, yeah, maybe, but this whole story from Trusik also ties into the fact that the person that was burning the Quran was actually hired by the Russian government and put there to start that whole incident so that a anonymous hacker could come on the theater and perform DDoS attacks and blame it on that burning of the Quran. So they said that it was staged by the Russian government, which is, yeah, that comes close to conspiracy theories for me. That is
I mean, yes, but look how many conspiracy theorists have been right over the last year. So
yeah, that yeah, but it's the story is not impossible. We've seen worse things happening, but still,
yeah.
it's far reaching. I tend to like to keep it simple and go with the evidence where the evidence points to and what is the most obvious, and that would be that it's religious cause. And the attacks on France corroborate with the most simple of the theories. Because now he's attacking France, and I don't see any Russian pro Russian hacktivists attacking France at the moment. So he's alone in his attacks on France.
Yeah.
So yeah, talking about DDoS techniques, and we can confirm, however, the technique. So those servers in IBM SoftLayer were taken down. So that meant one day that Anonymous Sudan was pretty quiet. He announced attacks and then he disappeared. All of a sudden, no more messages. But then he came back and started attacking again. So that means that he rebuilt his infrastructure. So of course, if he can rent them in IBM Cloud, he can rent them anywhere, right? So he just have to set up his servers again and then leverage his proxies, perform the attack. And we had some attacks that were impacting customers. So, well, I mean, by impacting that, we're targeting customers, but they were not impacted. Because the attacks, as I already said, are not of that nature that it's not possible to block them. They are not that sophisticated. So it was identical techniques that were still leveraged during the attacks on France. So HTTPS connection floods that he was trying to do, leveraging free and open proxies. And actually, a lot of those proxies that were used against the attacks on France were located in Russia. Which he might have picked up on that idea that somebody thinks that he's Russian. So play the narrative, right?
We've seen that with a few stressors that are involved in this
Yeah.
this conflict, where they have specific regions that you can use their proxies from for attacks.
Yeah. Now, the new thing for me is so the compromised MikroTik routers used as SOX proxies. We've seen that across the last 2 years, right? So MikroTik had that big incident where they had the password leaks. Those passwords were reused. They're still default passwords, old MikroTik devices. MikroTik very popular, especially in medium to small business. Typically, the businesses who are not caring enough about security to harden every device that they have in the network. So MikroTik routers are a very popular device, especially for SOX proxies. So we have seen a lot of compromised MikroTik user routers leveraged in SOX in attacks with proxies. Remember Maris? If that was a botnet to start with, I think it's more cloud servers proxying through all the different MikroTik devices. But a new one to me is a Squid forward proxy. I don't know if you know Squid. Squid already exists for a long time. If you have a Linux background, you will know Squid. You can install Squid on a Linux server. And then you can use that as a forward proxy. And a forward proxy means a caching proxy. So you connect out to the internet and you pass through that proxy. But actually the proxy will change your internal IP and will only expose one IP, which is the proxy IP. Now, if you spread servers around the internet and you're using them to proxy through, well, you can hide your origin of the server and you're using different IP addresses of different servers across the world. You can bring them down and put them back up. And I think that might also be used by certain anonymous VPN providers. You know, anonymous VPN providers, they can make a tunnel or they can just give you a proxy to connect through. And then you have an anonymous IP that you're using to connect out. And those Squid forward proxies were running on Ubuntu servers. So that's the first one that I see that Squid is being used in that kind of attacks.